meeting now? But I can't bring it over, can I?
No.
Oh, but we have it on mute. Okay.
There's a shot of the
You
two.
know, do it.
Mute, unmute.
That's what they said. They want you to stop the video.
Hit mute.
Sumner, you're correct. We're supposed to be muted and no video for the time being.
All right, my friends, we begin with a promise of light before our service liturgy starts. Welcome, everybody. Gemar Chatima Tova. May you and all of us be sealed for a good new year. I'm Cantor Vera Brookhuizen. I serve as a spiritual leader here at Temple Emanu-El of Haverhill, and I'm joined tonight on the bima by my colleague, Rabbi Rachel Putterman, by our wonderful Shaliach Tzibur, Flail Platkow, and we are so glad that all of you are here. Because we are also streaming live to YouTube, and thank you Haverhill Community TV for broadcasting this service over the television, we do ask that everybody keep your microphones muted and keep your cameras off, because that will allow this stream to happen in a smooth way. We're really grateful, speaking of tech, to our generous sponsors of this evening's Zoom Tech Assistance. Those are Scott and Andy Hanula, in loving memory of Andy's father, Barry Goldman, and Alan Coppell, in loving memory of his parents, Kenneth and Janet Coppell. Can everybody hear me? Is my sound working okay? Yes. Yes? Good. Okay. We are also grateful to the technology that allowed the three of us to get negative COVID tests, which allows us to, God willing, be safely singing in the same room together. So that is an extra blessing for tonight. We want to begin with a very special welcome and greeting from our Temple Board of Directors.
It's my great pleasure to welcome everybody to the celebration of this year's high holidays. It's an unusual situation, but we all hang together. I look forward to being back in Temple next year. Shana Tova to everybody.
Hello and Happy New Year to all of you joining us here in the Zoom universe. I was trying to do the calculations to start off like President Lincoln 83 years ago. We opened a nice congregation here in Haverhill, and we will continue 83 more. I share Stuart's views that it's tragic what we've had to endure these last months, but the holidays are a message that we should be full of hope that the next year will be a good one. And we hope that we all will be inscribed in the book for a good year. Shana Tova.
Shalom, Chavrei. It's my pleasure to also wish you a happy new year and to join the other past presidents and the members of the board and the clergy in this unique situation. For 5,000 years, we've found ways to persevere, and we'll do that again this year by meeting using the best technology available. And I too hope that next year we'll do it together in person. But I wish you all a happy and healthy New Year. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, everybody. I wanted to welcome you all to our Zoom services this year. Rather unique situation as it pertains to our New Year and high holiday services. I hope that they can bring you the joy that you're accustomed to having. You're with your family, at your home, and on the Zoom conference with your Temple family. And I wish you all a very happy New Year.
Shana Tova.
Happy New Year.
I'm now going to read a poem by Marcia Falk
that's called all vows before we do the Kol Nidrei. Kol Nidrei means all vows. So here we go. All vows, all promises and pledges that we have made to ourselves and that no longer serve for the good. May their grip be loosened, that we be present of mind and heart to the urgency of the hour. So we are going to be, that's the end of the poem. We are going to be doing our Beit Din over Zoom with Cantor Vera and myself and Phil serving as the Beit Din. And this is legally valid over Zoom this year. So I say.
And as we prepare to take the Sifrei Torah out of the Aron, I invite you, as you are able and comfortable, to stand in body or spirit, to stand witness to the Sifrei Torah along with us. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yada dai dai dai. Yada dai dai dai. Yada dai dai dai. Yai dai. Bishiva Shalamala Ubishiva Shalamata Aldat Hamakum Aldat Hakahal Anu Matirin Lehitpalel Im Avarianim Bishivai shel mala, ubishivai shel mata, al adat hamakom ve'al adat hakahal, anu matirin להתפלל עם העבריינים.
Yehon Sharon, Shvikim, Shvikim, Metelin Umvotalin, La Sheririn, Vela Kayamin, ושבועתנה לשבועות.
page 400.
ונשלח לכל עדת בני ישראל, ולגר הגר בתוכם, כי לכל העם בשגגה. ונשלח לכל עדת בני ישראל, ולגר הגר בתוכם, כי לכל העם בשגגה. ונשלח לכל עדת בני ישראל, ולגר הגר בתוכם, כי לכל העם בשגגה. סלח נא לעוון העם הזה כגודל חסדך, וכאשר נצאת לעם הזה ממצרים בירחינה, ושם נאמר, ויאמר אדוני, סלחתי כדברך, ויאמר אדוני, סלחתי כדברך, ויאמר אדוני, סלחתי כדברך.
On the facing page, we invite Lynn Martin to read.
O God of forgiveness, on this night of atonement we come before you, haunted by memories of duties unperformed, of promptings disobeyed, of beckonings ignored. We confess that there were opportunities for kindness and service which we allowed to pass by in the year just ended. We are ashamed of sins committed with evil intent, as well as follies committed unwittingly or even with good intentions. Make us honest enough to recognize our transgressions, big enough to admit them, strong enough to forsake them. Humble us by showing us what we are. Exalt us with a vision of what we may yet grow to be. Keep us ever mindful of our dependence upon you, and help us to understand your need of us. United with you in a holy partnership, may we dedicate our lives to your law of love. Help us to create homes filled with joy and harmony, and to labor for peace among communities and nations. On this sacred night, grant us atonement and help us to find serenity within ourselves. Kindle within us the fires of faith and set aglow our courage to live the words we pray.
Amen. Please join Robert Levine on page 400 as he leads us in the Shehechianu. Robert, you'll need to unmute. Robert, I think you'll need to unmute. There you go.
Rokato, I don't know. Okay. Rokato, I don't know. Eloheno Melech Olam, Shashek Yayanu, Vati Imano, Vihigi Nano, Azman Hazek. Blessed are you, God, ruler of the universe, who has given us life and sustained us and brought us to this time.
Amen. Amen ve'amen. Toda rabba.
Really, on TV.
Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Ya, dai, 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 ya, dai, dai, dai. Ya, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yada
die, 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 die. Yada, die, die, die. Yada, die, die, die. Yada, die, die, die. Yada. Please turn to page 408 and remain standing in body or in spirit as Phil Platkow leads us in the Baruch, the call to prayer.
Et Adonai Amevorach Baruch Adonai Amevorach Leolam Vahed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim b'chokhma potech she'arim v'bitunah mishaneh aitim u'machalif et hazmanim ומעביר יום ומביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני Amariv Aravim.
And we turn to page 410 for Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amecha Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mitzvotim otanu limadeta Al ken Adonai Eloheinu v'shachbeinu v'kumeinu nasiach b'chukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ויורך ימינו ויורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה.
ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Avoid.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha v'hayu hadavarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam V'shivtecha b'veitecha, uvlechtecha v'derech, uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha.
We invite Judd Nathan to read for us on page 415.
If you will faithfully obey the commandments which I command you this day, to love the Lord your God and to serve him with all your heart and all your soul, then I will favor your land with rain at the proper season, in autumn and in spring, and you will harvest your grain and wine and oil. I will give grass in the fields for your cattle, you will eat and be satisfied. Take care not to be lured away to worship other gods, for then the wrath of the Lord will be directed against you. He will close the heavens and there will be no rain. The earth will not yield its produce, and you will soon perish from the good land which the Lord gave you. Therefore, keep these words of mine in your heart and in your soul. Bind them as a sign upon your arm, and let them be a reminder above your eyes. Teach them to your children, speaking of them when you are at home and when you are away, when you lie down at night and when you rise up in the morning. Write them upon the doorposts of your homes and upon your gates. Thus your days and the days of your children will be multiplied on the land which the Lord promised to your ancestors for as long as the heavens remain over earth.
We're now on the top of page 416. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael, v'amarta alehem, va'asu lahem tzitzit, al kanfei vigdehem l'dorotam, v'natnu al tzitzit hakanaf v'til techelet, v'haya lachem litzitzit uritem oto uzachartem et kol mitzvot Adonai va'asitem otam v'lo taturu acharei levavchem va'acharei einechem asher atem zonim achareihem Leman tizkaru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kadoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. We're on page 418, about 3 lines up from the bottom of the first paragraph. V'rahu vanav givurato shibechu v'hodu lishma
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות אוסף אלה מלכותך ובניך בוקע היום לפני משה ומרים זלינו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. We turn to page 420 and will be led by our choir in Hashkivenu with Amy Moldoff and Claire Breger-Belsky soloing.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Lishalom, Hamidenu Malkeinu Lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Lishalom, Hamidenu Malkeinu Eloheinu Lishalom, Hamidenu Adonai, Eloheinu Lishalom, Hamidenu
We're at the bottom of page 420. כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני אדוני תטהרו.
And now we continue with the Chatzi Kaddish on page 422.
Please rise in body or spirit.
Gadal v'yitkadash shemirabah be'alma divrach hirutei Ve'amlich malchutei b'chayechonu yomechon uhaye dechol Beit Yisrael Bagala Uvisman Kariv Ve'emeru Amen Yehishmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam U'le'olmei Hamaya Yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei kodesha brichu le'ela u'le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiron, Damiron ve'alma ve'emeru Amen.
We're now going to do a silent Amidah that starts on the top of page 424. So please rise in body or spirit. And you may take this time to either follow along in the Machzor or to take this time to do your own personal prayer or meditation or whatever you need right now. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufia gita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. 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 Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. רבה ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רבה ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רבה ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רבה ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. Please join the choir near the bottom of page 432 for B'Sefer Chaim. B'Sefer Chaim beracha b'shalom u'farnasa tova. Nizacher v'nikativ lefanecha. Anachnu v'chol amecha beit Yisrael. L'chaim tovim u'leshalom. Baruch atah Adonai oseh hashalom.
So it's my great honor to be with you all tonight. It's probably a little less strange for me than it is for you to be together virtually, since nearly all of my interactions with this community so far have been over Zoom. Nevertheless, it's strange. Everything is strange right now. Nothing is as we expected or hoped for. I find some solace in simply acknowledging the abnormality of everything. Because sometimes when I find myself caught up in whatever my new normal is, grocery shopping while wearing a mask, having a meeting over Zoom, filling out my daughter's health attestation before school, I catch my breath when I realize how much things have changed. Yet we've adapted. How are we able to continue on with our lives, especially in the midst of so much loss and so many unknowns? The answer is at least in part purely biological. Like all living creatures, we're adaptable by nature. But the other part of the answer is our unique ability to perceive a future that is different from our today. We power through whatever is happening because we can glimpse the possibility of an end to our current hardships. There are other completely valid reactions to existential threats that fall short of such imagining. One is denial. The virus isn't that bad, it's like the flu. The climate changes over time anyway. What's a couple of degrees? Winter feels colder to me. Denial makes total sense when facing a reality that feels so overwhelming as to be incomprehensible. Anna Freud was the first to describe denial as a defense mechanism that protects our psyches from information that is too traumatic to process. I certainly experienced a bit of denial at the beginning of the pandemic when I just couldn't wrap my head around the danger that was bearing down on all of us. As understandable as it may be, the practical implication of protracted denial is that the physical laws of the universe march on and we do nothing to alter their course. Another common response when going through tough times is pessimism. The attitude that everything's going to hell in a handbasket anyway, so why should I wear a mask or recycle? We're all doomed. While I skirt around feelings of hopelessness, I can't dwell in that frame of mind for too long. Call it hubris, idealism, or foolishness, but I refuse to accept that I'm powerless to change the outcome. If denial and pessimism are out, what about optimism, you may be thinking? Isn't that the ideal response to challenging times? The unshakable belief that things will get better? Well, I would argue, not really. Pessimism and optimism are just two sides of the same coin. They both presume the certainty of the future, of how things will turn out, whether for the good or for the bad. For pessimists, the end of the world as we know it is clear and there is nothing we can do about it. Optimists are equally clear that everything is going to be just fine, whether we take action or not. The problem with pessimism and optimism is that the end is preordained, leaving us with no role to play in how things turn out. In rabbinical school, we spend an inordinate amount of time studying Jewish texts, the Bible, Talmud, Halakha, Jewish philosophy. As a kind of afterthought, we take a couple of classes on how to officiate at a funeral or a wedding or a b'nai mitzvah. As an appendix to the afterthought, we take one class on pastoral care, on the fine art of being with people who are experiencing loss of one kind or another. The first day of my pastoral care class, the teacher explained that providing pastoral care to people involved embodying hope. I was immediately struck by this phrase. That's what I want to do. That's why I went to rabbinical school. I want to embody hope for people. But it wasn't until I was interviewing for a chaplaincy internship that I was forced to articulate what embodying hope means for me. So when asked, I took a piece of paper, I drew a circle, and then I drew a bigger circle around the first circle. Pointing to the inside of the inner circle, I said, this is what we know. Then I pointed to the area between the inner and outer circles, and I said, this is what we don't know. I believe that embodying hope is being inside both circles with people who are suffering, being fully present with what we do know, while simultaneously creating space for what we don't know about the future. It doesn't mean that I'm either optimistic or pessimistic. For example, it doesn't mean that I presume that someone with cancer will either die or get better. It means that I hold the space for the future being different than the present moment. As difficult as it may be to accept, the truth is that we literally never know what the next moment will bring. That is the problem with both optimism and pessimism. They fail to acknowledge the ever-changing nature of reality and the precarious elasticity of our existence. Since our collective future right now is perhaps more unclear than it's ever been, the need for embodied hope is greater than ever before. I believe that hope, embodied and otherwise, is the answer to the question as to how we continue to engage in our quotidian lives amidst all the uncertainty and devastation around us. If we thread the needle of optimism and pessimism, we arrive in the land of hope, a place that acknowledges difficult realities and recognizes complexity while refusing to surrender to an idea of the inevitable. Hope requires a leap of faith and a healthy dose of imagination. And arguably, it is hope that has fueled the survival of the body politic of Judaism throughout the millennia. Rebecca Solnit is a prolific author of many books, including Hope in the Dark, which was originally published in 2004, and a third edition just came out a couple years ago. In a section of the book entitled, "The Branches Are Hope, the Roots Are Memory," Solnit articulates hope's relationship to memory. Quote, "Though hope is about the future, grounds for hope lie in the records and recollections of the past. We can tell of a past that was nothing but defeats and cruelties and injustices, or of a past that was some lovely golden age now irretrievably lost, or we can tell a more complicated and accurate story, one that has room for the best and the worst, for atrocities and liberations, for grief and jubilation, a memory commensurate to the complexity of the past and the whole cast of participants, a memory that includes our power, produces that forward-directed energy called hope," end quote. As I read Solnit's formulation of hope as future-oriented, yet rooted in a connection and relationship with memory, I couldn't help but think of our own Jewish story. Our Torah writ large, not just the 5 books, but including the writings and the prophets as well, serves as a recorded recollection of our shared past. It unstintingly, meaning with all the blemishes, recounts our formation as a people in direct relationship with God and all the ups and downs that happened along the way. The beauty of Torah is that it is profoundly complicated. It includes the best and the worst of our patriarchs and matriarchs, as well as the many atrocities and liberations that we experienced as a people. These complex Torah stories of grief and jubilation form the very bedrock of our tradition. We study them endlessly, and they inform our commemorative holidays. The shared memories that is the focal point for much of Torah is our enslavement and then exodus from Egypt. This year, I drew real comfort and strength from the haunting parallel of conducting Passover Seders during lockdown and the Passover Stories Night of Terror, where the Israelites hid in their houses as the angel of death passed them by. Hope arises from staying connected to our complex memories of trauma. When we find ourselves in similarly untenable situations, we realize that this happened before. It will probably happen again, and we will survive. Hope is the animating force that allows the impossible to become possible. A few weeks ago, we read one of the last parshiot in Deuteronomy, Nitzavim, where Moses reiterates the blessings or curses that will befall the Israelites, depending on whether they uphold their end of the covenantal bargain. At the end of the parsha is the famous line, this is Moses talking, but channeling God, basically. "I have put before you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life so that you and your descendants will live, by loving the Lord your God, heeding God's commands, and holding fast to God." These verses have echoes in our high holiday liturgy with the imagery of God inscribing us in the book of life, or not. Indeed, tradition has it that these next 25 hours are our last chance to impact our fate before the book is sealed. According to the Unatana Tokef that Cantor Vera will chant tomorrow, our choice in the matter is limited to engaging in sufficient tshuva, tefillah, and tzedakah to avert God's harsh decree. Based on our actions, God is the one who decides whether we live or die. This is a particularly difficult pill to swallow, especially during a pandemic. While the idea of God as the great fate determiner in the sky doesn't work for me, I do think that being confronted with our mortality every year and the urgency that brings up about doing better is constructive. But this year, I'd like to uphold the softer message of choose life from Nitzavim. My take on choose life is that it is intimately related to hope. Our continuity as a people and even as a species is impossible unless we have the courage to choose life, and such a choice must be premised on hope. Things may seem pretty bleak. Hell, they are bleak. We are living through a global pandemic as well as a climate crisis. But to throw in the towel and resign ourselves to the fact that all is lost is not an option, especially not for us. If we had done that during any one of the many calamities that befell our people, we wouldn't be here today. Again, I'm not talking about hope as synonymous with optimism, but rather hope as the opposite of resignation, a hope that moves us, inspires us to exercise our agency by providing us with the space to recognize the complexity of the moment and the impossibility of predicting the future. Not only that, as an embodied experience, hope is life-giving. In the spacious domain of hope, it's much easier to breathe than in the constriction of hopelessness. When I'm feeling despair, it's pretty much impossible for me to take a deep breath. Hope gives me the life-sustaining breath and the perspective to be simultaneously present in the inner circle of what we know and the outer circle of what we don't know. So, on this exceedingly strange Yom Kippur, take a deep breath, hold on to hope, and choose life so that our descendants may live.
We let our spirits and our prayers rise on page 446. And if you have the supplement at home, the transliteration is on page 18 in here so that you can sing along with me with the prayer, Ya'aleh. Ya'aleh tachanonenu me'erev, ve'yavo shavatenu miboker, ve'yira'irinu nenu ad arem, ve'yira'irinu nenu ad arem. Ya'aleh, Ya'aleh kolenu me'erev, ve'yavo tzidkatenu miboker, ve'yira'e midyonenu ad arem, ve'yira'e midyonenu ad arem. Ya'aleh, Ya'aleh dovkeinu me'erev, ve'yavo gileinu miboker, ve'yira'e bakashateinu ad arem, ve'yira'e bakashateinu ad arem. Ya'aleh, Ya'aleh etkatenu me'erev, ve'yavo elecha miboker, ve'yira'e ileinu ad arem, ve'yira'e ileinu ad arem. As we prepare for Adonai, Adonai, the Shalosh Esrei Midot, we turn to page 454 in our Machzor. Please rise.
Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Noseh Chesed l'Alafim, Noseh Avon v'Pesha, V'chata v'nakei. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Hanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet. אלפים, נושא עוון ופשע, וחטא ונקי. אדוני, אדוני, אל רחום וחנון, ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת, נושא חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע, וחטא ונקי.
וסלחת לעווננו ולחטאתנו, ונחלת לנו. We turn to page 458 for a prayer that our prayers are listened to by the one who listens. Please rise in body or spirit as we open the Aron HaKodesh.
Shema, Shema, Koleinu, Shema, Shema, Koleinu, Shema, Shema, Koleinu, Shema, 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 Koleinu.
Shema Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chos v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel ברחמים וברצון את תפילתנו. השיבנו, אדוני אלוהינו, אליך ונשובה. חדיש ימינו, חדיש ימינו כקדם.
Shema, Shema, Koleinu, Shema, Shema, Koleinu, Shema, Shema, Koleinu, Shema, 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 Koleinu.
אל תשליכנו מלפניך, ורוח קודשך אל תיקח, אל תיקח, אל תיקח ממני, אל תיקח ממנו. אל תשליכנו כעת זקנה, ככלות כוחנו, אל תעזבינו, אל תעזבינו, אל תעזבינו, אל תעזבינו, אדוני אלוהינו, אל תרחק ממנו.
Please be seated.
Please join me at the top of page 460. We're going to sing one of my favorites, and this transitions us. After this, we do our vidui, our confessional part of the service. Eloheinu ve'Elohim salach lanu michal lanu kaper lanu ki anu amecha ve'ata Eloheinu anu vanecha ve'ata avinu anu avadecha ve'ata Adonenu anu kahalecha ve'ata chelkenu anu nachalatecha ve'ata goralenu anu tzonecha ve'ata roeinu anu charmecha ve'ata notrenu anu fa'ulatecha ve'ata yotzrenu anu rayatecha ve'ata dodenu anu segulatecha ve'ata krovenu anu amecha ve'ata malkenu anu mamaricha ve'ata mamirenu yadai yadai dai yadai da 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 yadai yadai dai yadai da 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 da.
We invite Trudy Zakin to read the poem Weeds on page 20 of your supplements.
Weeds, only weeds, and yet to the untrained eye, fingers crawling, roots sprawling, the stretched, too thin, nonetheless outstretched, exalting. There is still God to be found here. By Devin Spire.
We turn to page 462, and as I invite you to rise in body or spirit and to prepare for the short vidui, the first confessional, I want to share a piece of Torah from my friend and teacher, Rabbi Avi Killip, who wrote this, I think, just today, suggesting that in a year where pandemic is raging and where we have suffered all kinds of losses that we did not expect, that we think of this knocking at our hearts not as a wondering what ways we've gone wrong and what kinds of fears we might be nursing, but as a resuscitation. That we remind our hearts that we are still here, as Rabbi Rachel said, hope is still beating in us, and that we call that forth with this Hashamnu. We're on page 462. Please rise.
We turn to page 464 in the middle of the page. Manomar lefanecha yoshiv marom, ומה נספר לפניך שוכן שחקים, הלא כל הנסתרות והנגלות אתה יודע. For the long vidui, the long confessional, we turn to page 436 in your Machzor. The transliteration is on page 21 in your supplement, if you would like to follow along there. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך באונס וברצון, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בהימוץ הלב, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בבלי דעת, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בביטוי שפתיים, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בגילוי עריות, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בגלוי ובסתר, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בדעת ובמרמה, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בדיבור פה, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בהונאת רע, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בהרהור הלב, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בבעידת זנות, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בווידוי פה, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בזלזול הורים ומורים, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בזדון ובשגגה, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בחוזק יד, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בחילול השם, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בטומאת שפתיים, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בטיפשות פה, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביצר הרע, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביודעים ובלא יודעים, ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו, ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בכחש ובכזב, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בכפת שוחד, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך ברצון, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בלשון הרע, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך במשא ובמתן, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך במאכל ובמשתה, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בנשך ובמרבית, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בנטיית גרון, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בשיח שפתותינו, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בסיקור עין, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בעיניים רמות, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בעזות נצח. ועל כולם אלוה הסליחות, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו. ועל כולם אלוה הסליחות, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו. ועל כולם אלוה הסליחות, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו.
על החטא שחטאנו לפניך בפריקת עול, ועל החטא שחטאנו לפניך בפלילות, על החטא שחטאנו לפניך בצדיעת רע, ועל החטא שחטאנו לפניך בצרות עין, על החטא שחטאנו לפניך בקלות ראש, ועל החטא שחטאנו לפניך בקשיות עורף, על החטא שחטאנו לפניך בריצת רגליים להרע, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך ברכילות, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בשבועת שווא, ועל החטא שחטאנו לפניך בשנאת חינם, על החטא שחטאנו לפניך בתשוית מת יד, ועל החטא שחטאנו לפניך בתימהון לבב. ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו. ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו.
We turn now to page 472 for Avinu Malkeinu. Please rise in body or spirit if you were not already standing as the ark is opened. אבינו מלכנו חטאנו לפניך.
אבינו מלכנו אין לנו מלך אלא אתה.
אבינו מלכנו החזירנו בתשובה שלמה לפניך.
אבינו מלכנו חדש עלינו שנה טובה.
אבינו מלכנו שלח רפואה שלמה לחולי עמך.
אבינו מלכנו הפר עצת אויבינו.
אבינו מלכנו זכרנו בזיכרון טוב לפניך.
אבינו מלכנו כתבנו בספר חיים טובים.
אבינו מלכנו כתבנו בספר גאולה וישועה.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kotveinu B'Sefer Parnasah V'Chalkala.
Avinu Malkeinu Kodveinu Besefer Zechuyot.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kotveinu B'Sefer Slicha V'Tfilah.
Avinu Malkeinu Hatzmach Lanu Yeshua Bekarov.
Avinu Malkeinu, Haren Karen Yisrael Amecha.
Avinu Malkeinu Shema Kolinu Chus V'Rachem Aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kabel Brachamim V'Baratzon Tefilatenu.
Avinu Malkeinu Chamol Aleinu Ve'alol Aleinu V'Tapeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh L'Ma'an Ba'e Va'esh Uvamayim Al Kiddush Shemecha.
Avinu Malkeinu Aseh Lema'ancha Im Lo Lema'anenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Aleinu, Ki Emanu-El Masim. Aseh Emanu, Tzedaka v'Chesed. Aseh Emanu, Tzedaka v'Chesed, V'Hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Aleinu, Ki Emanu-El Masim. Aseh Emanu, Tzedaka v'Chesed. Aseh Emanu, Tzedaka v'Chesed, V'Hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Aleinu, Ki Emanu-El Masim. Aseh Emanu, Tzedaka v'Chesed. Aseh Emanu, Tzedaka v'Chesed, V'Hoshienu.
We turn now to page 476 to be led in the Kaddish Shalem by our choir.
יתגדל ויתקדש מרמה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, וחייכונו ביום איכון, ובחיית לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב. ואמרו אמן, יהי שמרה Amen.
תתקבל צלותן ובאותן בכל בית ישראל, קודם אבון בי בשמיא, קודם אבון בי בשמיא.
Amen.
יש למרמה מן שמיא וחיים וחיים. עלינו, עלינו, ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל.
Amen.
ויעשה שלום
Roma.
ויעשה
Shalom.
עלינו,
Aleinu.
ועל כל ישראל.
Israel.
We turn to page 478 as the ark is opened for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגבהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום והשבת אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת. Ein od. We turn the page to 480. And towards the bottom. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. We turn to page 482 for the Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish, as we recall perhaps those who used to be with us on this holiday and are not anymore. If you want a name of somebody who you are remembering to be known, please go ahead and type it into the chat so that we can see the people we're carrying with us tonight. And if you're in mourning, if you're recalling a yortzeit, or if it's your custom to rise to say Kaddish for those who no longer have family to say Kaddish for them, please rise in body or spirit as together we join in the Kaddish on page 482. יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותה וימליך מלכותה, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמך רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר, ויתרומם, ויתנשא, ויתהדר, ויתעלה, ויתהלל, שמך תקודשה, בריחו. לעילה ולעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. Please be seated as our choir leads us in a prayer for peace, and we remember their memories. Zichronam livracha. It has been a privilege to come together this night for the beginning of our observance of Yom Kippur. Thank you again to my Bima partners, Rabbi Rachel Putterman and Phil Platkow. Thank you to HCTV for so generously broadcasting this. Thank you, Scott and Andy, in memory of Andy's father, Barry, and Alan Coppell, in memory of his parents, Kenneth and Janet Coppell, for allowing our Zoom tech to be with us for the evening. And thank you to the choir and our soloists and to our wonderful pianist, David Collins, who have all found ways to be with us virtually tonight. And thank you to all of you for creating this holy time together and for spending it with us. We are going to end our service with Yigdal on page 486 in your Machzor. To those who are fasting, Gemar Chatimat Tova to us all. May we be sealed for a good year. Thank you from us, from the temple's wonderful board of directors, and hope to see you tomorrow. Our services begin at 8 o'clock in the morning with an early Birchot HaShachar and Psuke de Zimra. Shacharit starts at 10. Shacharit and Torah service, they'll go to till about 11:45. Musaf begins at 12:30. Yizker at 2. Mincha at 4. And Ne'ilah at 6:30. So hope to see you at all of that if you can. And this concludes our service for tonight. I am going to stop our live stream if I can.